don't think I'm gonna stand up there. How y'all doing today? All right, my name's Bobby. A lot of people know me from the library, but in Cape Charles, many of the kids know me as their chess teacher because I teach chess at the Cape Charles Memorial Library. Many people, when they first meet me, they think because I have so many cousins and relatives on the Eastern Shore that I was born on the Eastern Shore. But I was born in Norfolk, Virginia at DePaul Hospital. All four of my grandparents were born, bred, and raised on the Eastern Shore in Northampton County though. So essentially, I was raised by my parents with the help of my grandparents as well. And all four of my grandparents were all adversely different, even though they all came from Northampton County. So my mom's family, they were more middle class, where my dad's family, they were more on their own, sort of thing. So my mom's family lived close to 13, where my dad's family, they lived kind of far back in what people call the backwoods back then. And my mom's family, they had small businesses and things like that, where my dad's family had a farm and they raised pigs. So I got all aspects of the Eastern Shore life, whereas my mom's family, they dressed up nice, they went places and stuff like that, where my dad's family, they were very independent. They funded many of the things for themselves and stuff like that. Like when my dad went to Norfolk State, his sisters worked out in the fields and sent him money so that he could get through college. So it was a more independent aspect coming from my father's family. But it gave me a very full view of life because it was very different when I came over here from Norfolk. So in Norfolk, where people are, the Mexicans are with the Mexicans, the blacks live with the blacks, and everybody in the city has their own space in the city, people on the Eastern Shore kind of mixed a little bit better because of an interdependence. So my grandmother, she was a housekeeper for many prominent families on the Eastern Shore, like the Mears and stuff like that. And so my farm that I own now, they tied it up in like a homestead act, so we can't lose it. And we got that benefit because my grandmother was their housekeeper. So growing up, I saw that that's how you gain opportunity. You get involved within your community and you serve some type of purpose to the people here. So even though my families were so adversely different, they were always involved in the community. Like my grandmother my dad's mother made a thing that we all went to 4-H camp. And from 4-H camp, we became 4-H counselors. And I was with Northampton Extension Group every year, and the Virginia Beach Extension agent would be like, "That's not fair, he doesn't even live in you guys' county." But I just fed in so well with the Northampton group because many of my cousins already went, and now as an adult, a lot of the kids graduating from Northampton High School, I was their counselor when they were like 6, 7, when they were wet to bed and things like that. So I already identified with a lot of these children here just from my upbringing and volunteering and doing different things on the Eastern Shore. But it's a lot of things that I noticed that were different. So on the Eastern Shore was a lot slower, and that made it a great place though, because on the Eastern Shore we got to get a more hands-on upbringing here. So where I could play and go and run up and down the street here, you couldn't do that in Norfolk. Like my mom was like, "Look, I need to see you when you're outside on that street. If I can't see you, that's a problem." So I took every chance I could to come here because it was just more sense of freedom here on the Eastern Shore with my cousins, and we could just be playing outside all night long until our grandma called us in. But it gave me a higher sense of consciousness or awareness. So when I was in Norfolk, things were different. So I began comparing things early. Just like when I had two different families from the Eastern Shore, I had cousins who were a little bit more higher up in society, and then I had cousins that were adversely different. So I began to compare things and see the difference in things and see that, okay, this works and this doesn't work. So I began to add those things into my life. And a lot of the things that worked for both of my grandparents is, like I said, as they participated in the larger community, they gained things from that, such as my grandfather, he ran like an inn in Eastville where they now have a fabric store. It was called the Roosevelt Era. So he provided a hangout spot there. So a lot of people gave him things and looked out for him, made sure his family ate and different things. So it was the relationships and basically the networking that helped the community essentially get by. And that middle class was created by the private entrepreneurship that consisted on the Eastern Shore. And that was adversely different for when growing up across the Bay, where all my friends, their parents had jobs, where a lot of my cousins and stuff on the Eastern Shore, their parents were participating in some type of local entrepreneurship. They might not have owned the business, but they were participating in some portion of the business. And it just gave me a real independent spirit, which brought me back to the Eastern Shore. Because as soon as I got back, I wanted to get involved with the things going on and try to help the children on the Eastern Shore, because I felt my cup runneth over from the Eastern Shore. I had 4 grandparents, and from those 4 grandparents, I had other extended grandparents such as great aunts, great uncles. I just had a large family support, so that was adversely different from many of my friends in Norfolk. They didn't know where they came from. They were like, yeah, my mom came here from Chicago, my dad came here from California. Their family had been constantly moving, whereas my family has been here a very long time. So I have 5th and 6th cousins that I walk past in the library, and people are like, oh, you're related to everyone. But it's just my family's long time on the Eastern Shore that gave us such a large support system. And I believe that's what keeps the children going, because a support system gives them a reason to live and to keep going. Because as a child, many times I'm not sure if everyone remembers, it was a skating rink over here, and they called it Dreams. And we used to go there every Saturday. My dad's mother made sure all of us, because she had about 75 grandkids from 10 children. So she made sure we went to the skating rink some kind of way, several cars, but we all went up to Dreams, and that was a big thing for us on the weekend. And Cape Charles. I know Cape Charles is changing, but a lot of people remember how Cape Charles used to be, because I used to hang out in Flipper McCoy's at Cape Charles with my cousins. So it's a lot of things that are coming back to the shore, but I think it's a few things that we're going to have to look at a little bit more aggressively that we don't have that used to be here. Just as a child, I remember different hangout spots where people used to sit at. Like some Sundays I used to sit in Shortstop with my grandfather. They took all the tables out of Shortstop. That was not just a recreational thing for young people, that was a recreational thing for older people. You know, a lot of the meeting places where people met and where a lot of these ideas gave birth, they're now gone. You know, I also remember when my grandfather, I used to ride down to Cheapside. They had pool halls in Cheapside. But a lot of the unique things of the shore have disappeared. And I believe it's because it's a changing hands of generations. So it's a new generation coming forward. So if we want to continue to move forward, we have to push the new generation forward. Because I go to Northampton High School sometimes, and a lot of the kids are discouraged, or they're like, yeah, I gotta get out of this place. And to me that says we haven't given them a reason to live. and they're waiting to live their life when they get 18 and get off this shore, that's a big problem. So it's a lot of the things that made the shore a nice, slow, great place have now disappeared. Because as a young person, I worked 8 months at Purdue. I liked wearing this suit better. And it's a lot of older people in here, and I'm gonna tell you now, the generation behind me, they're not gonna work at Purdue either. They're not gonna work for $7.25 an hour either. Because first moving back, it was pretty hard, and I had about several job interviews, but I had to turn several jobs down because all they could offer me was $7.25 to cook and be a cashier or do several jobs for $7.25 an hour. And those are some of the things that have to be addressed, because I hear older people that say, oh, what's wrong with y'all younger people? Y'all don't want to work. No, we're not working for $7.25. Because now that you have educated them and they know they need more money than that to live out here, they're not going to work for it. So we have to start addressing certain things if we want things to move forward, because the community that's here keeps the shore alive. Because a lot of these people that are from here, they have some of these old shore names like Gulfaghan, Nottingham, and it's a reason they have those last names. It's a story in those last names. And so we don't want that information to be lost, so we can't allow these people to get lost. So I just think we have to be more aware of the decisions that we're making moving forward, because a lot of people, when they tell me, they're like, well, it's jobs, it's Purdue, and it's Tyson's, and I'm like, no, that's illness. You know, as soon as a young person gets a job there, they have a doctor's office there because you're constantly getting sick. So these young people are starting to realize that I gotta leave the shore if I want to prosper, because they're seeing their older brothers and sisters graduate and then going to Purdue and it doesn't work out. The first thing they're doing is they're ready to go and leave. And we have to create a better environment, because when it's bad environment, people make bad decisions. So a lot of the young people have nowhere to go. So they're out there making bad decisions. And I believe it's up to us to make the Eastern Shore a place where these young people want to live and want to stay. Because as long as they keep leaving, the funding is going to be less and less and less, and they're going to have to find other ways to do things, just such as the middle school closing here. To me, that seems a big problem in Northampton County, because when I grew up in Norfolk, it was such a big thing that the kids going through that intermediate process had to be separated, that we had a 6th grade campus. So from 6th grade, you were transitioned into 7th and 8th grade into middle school, and then you went on to high school. And I believe that transition process is very much needed. And as you look out into many of the kids on the Eastern Shore, they're into things that are above their age level, but they're mixed in with a lot of older kids. So it's several things that we have to address before we decide to, like they say, throw money around. We have to decide what we want to move forward. Do we want to build these kids up, or do we want to send them out to get built up? Because that's how they feel. They feel that, you know, no one's gonna put money into them. Because I participate in the reality store at the Northampton, and basically they get their bills and they manage their money within this game that we play with them. And I handed one of the children a bill. He said, "What do I do with this?" I said, "Subtract it from your total." How do I do that? And it just shocked me, because in 9th grade, no one's talked to you about subtracting from the total. But when it's a lot of kids in the classroom, they get left behind. So we have to find a way to start reaching these kids individually, and a lot of it just starts participating in other things and starting little programs and initiatives, and that's why I participate in everything that I can, because just with chess club, these kids, they see me at chess club and then they see me out in public and they're like, oh, that's Bobby, that's Bobby. So when I'm there for a field trip or something, they're interested because that's Bobby, that's Bobby. So myself, I'm fixing myself to be a role model for the next generation coming here, because they need leaders. So the young people that are in their 20s now, we're going to be their leaders. So I'm already getting acquainted with them now. But moving forward, we just have to focus on a community here, a more inclusive community, such as they were saying with the census, because graduating from community college, as far as I know, it was about 4 or 5 people in my class, they weren't citizens. So when we were all sitting down talking about how we were going to pay for, our 4-year degrees as we're moving on, they're like, yeah, I got to figure out how to pay for mine. I can't get any funding because I'm not a citizen. I said, but you grew up here. He said, yeah, I grew up on the Eastern Shore. So to me, that poses a problem. A lot of people are left behind because of certain labels and things that are tied to certain communities. So I believe to address the disparities, we have to start addressing these labels and start being more inclusive with our community, because if you look out on the shore, it's always going to be an interdependence. It's $15 to go across the bridge. So you might want to get it on this side of the water. But we just have to start figuring out how we can be more inclusive and start working together a lot more, because a lot of people that I work with on the Rosenwald board, we all come from different walks of life. We all come from different communities on the Eastern Shore, but we're all forging something for the next generation. So moving forward, I just think we have to, more things like this forum help us to collaborate, because everyone on the shore is like a isolated community, like an isolated silo, but you have leaders in each isolated silo. So we have to start getting together and forming better jobs for the future, better access to healthcare. Because anytime I make a doctor's appointment for my primary care doctor, it's always 2 to 3 weeks out. So that lets you know that they're overloaded. It's different problems that no matter how much money you throw around, they're going to persist until things have been redistributed or readdressed, because the shore is a very old place, and I know we're kind of afraid of change sometimes, but change is a way of life. And the kids, even though they can't do many things for themselves, they're very smart, and they notice a lot of things, and they notice when a community is not cared about either, or not accepted. So it's a lot of things that we have to address, because that's what affects the kids' confidence. So I was talking to a kid at Northampton. He said because he comes from Bayview, he doesn't have many options. And I said, why do you feel you don't have many options because you come from Bayview? He said, well, you know what they say about Bayview. And a lot of those old attitudes and ideas still circulate, and the kids, they hear them, they see them. They may not understand them, but they see them, and it works on their confidence, their whole mindset, And then that even leads out to their effort, because if you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to put in the right effort. So, in closing, I just really think we have to address a lot of the disparities by changing the shore. Different things have to change. It has to be better jobs than Purdue, because my grandmother, she worked at the shirt factory where they made shirts. I still have shirts that my grandmother made. And from that shirt factory, she also manned a sewing machine. So she did alterations on the side, she made dresses on the side. We have to start giving these children a trade. Because from a trade, not only can they get a job, they can work outside of their job too. So we just have to give them more options. It's not many options on the Eastern Shore. My parents left because there wasn't many options on the Eastern Shore. But we came back through me, because this is where we're from. You know, we have a lot of pride in the community and things, and we have a long history here. So it's gonna take a lot of people, like every person in this room. We have to be more concerned and just address things a lot more. Even if it works, still fix it, because it can always be better.
Didn't wait to retire to come back here. There are so many, I'm sure each of you have, I wrote down various things as Bobby was speaking. I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate knowing you and working with you. And this won't be the last time you see him at this event, I'm sure. So thank you very much. We're getting ready.